after his team lost to the Knicks. 11 minutes later, Woj tweeting again saying the Wolves had asked the Raptors for permission to try and hire Toronto assistant Chris Finch. Then 17 minutes after that, Woj again reporting that Minnesota and Finch had finalized a multi-year deal. Wow, NBA insider Adrian Wojnarowski joining us now with much more on this story. So Woj, how did the dismissal of Saunders and then the hiring of Finch come together so quickly last night?
Well, Gerson Rosas, Minnesota's president, he had been through having an interim coach in Houston. He didn't love the way that played out, and if he was going to make a change in season, and he decided to do that with Ryan Saunders, he wanted to move quickly to another regime and get a program in place, feeling like he doesn't have time to waste with this Minnesota franchise. He's got history with Chris Finch in Houston, where he was their G League coach and an assistant. Interviewed him for the head coaching job in Minnesota 2 years ago, and then moved quickly last night to get permission from Toronto and get a deal done.
Meanwhile, a lot of reaction from around the league about how this went down last night. Here's a tweet from Blazers star Damian Lillard saying this: "How the hell do you not hire Timberwolves assistant David Vanterpool? He's right there on the bench. He's been in front office successfully and on the front of the bench of a winning team successfully, 7 years, and also has played a major role in the development of a dominant backcourt, SMDH," shaking my head. Vanterpool was an assistant with the Blazers from 2012 to 2019. So, Woj, what's Lillard getting at right here with that tweet?
Well, listen, Damian Lillard is right. David Vanterpool is a terrific head coaching candidate in the NBA. And, Gerson Rosas interviewed him for the job in Minnesota that Ryan Saunders kept as the interim coach, and then hired him away from Portland as the associate head coach in Minnesota. And listen, in this league, players like Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, the way they've advocated for David Vanterpool, the way you see Spurs players advocate for Becky Hammon, or in Cleveland with women's assistant Lindsey Gottlieb, the way you hear Kevin Love or Colin Sexton talk about her as a potential future head coaching candidate, this is how change will come in the league. This is how assistants, black assistants in particular, are going to be helped to get opportunities. Darvin Ham in Milwaukee, Wes Unseld Jr. in Denver, Jamal Mosley in Dallas. There is a group, and David Vanterpool, there is a great group coming up in this league that are going to be head coaches, that deserve the chance to be head coaches. And I think players advocating the way, especially Lillard and McCollum, who've done a lot of that for David Vanterpool, it's going to help these guys get chances ultimately in Minnesota. For a GM who has got to get this turned around, his history with Finch convinced him that he was the best candidate to help win now. I know how Gerson Rosas feels about David Vanterpool. He thinks he's a head coach in the league. He thought Finch was better for what they needed now.
Okay, we will see how this continues to play out the rest of the way. The Timberwolves face the Bucks tomorrow. Woj, thank you. Anna?
Well, Cam Newton, for all that he has accomplished, an MVP season, a trip to the Super Bowl, a career that helped change the way the game is played at his position, has also been a lightning rod for criticism. Famously, even a few years ago, from a mom who publicly skewered him for the way he was dancing in a rival stadium. But what happened this weekend? It really struck a chord. Disrespect from a high school kid, which outraged many on social media and also engendered respect for Cam for the way he handled it. Michelle Steele has the story.
It's something fans don't see very often, a former NFL MVP getting trash-talked by a teenager, and Cam Newton responding in kind.
You're a free agent. You're a free agent, Rich. You're a free agent. You about to be poor. I'm rich.
The interaction, which since has been seen over 12 million times, occurred at a 7-on-7 football tournament in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where Newton's foundation sponsors teams, and Newton appears as a coach himself. The quarterback shared an extended video of his talk with the player on his own social media channels.
I'm not trying to crack no jokes. I'm just really trying to ask a simple question. It's your fault why everybody's looking, but I'm really just trying to ask a question. But you never said what you did. You said you're going to see.
Reaction from NFL players including Eric Ebron, Cam Jordan, Darius Slay, and at least one team executive, the president of the Washington football team, lamented what happened and defended Newton, with Tampa Bay running back Leonard Fournette tweeting, "Don't miss your chance to learn something from someone who has been there at the highest level in this sport. Stay humble." By early Monday morning, the high school senior felt compelled to release a written apology on Twitter, saying, "As a football player, I let my competitive side get the best of me and hope I can be forgiven." The high school player J. Seth Owens told me he hasn't heard from Newton or Newton's reps since he posted his apology, but he said he knows Newton sees it and that he really is sorry. Newton is set to become an unrestricted free agent later this year. For ESPN, I'm Michelle Steele.
Thank you, Michelle. Now, after a year with the Patriots, Newton once again finding himself a free agent. Remember, he won that MVP in 2015, culminating a 3-year run during which he took Carolina to the Super Bowl. He had a QBR of 61. Now, the last 2 years, he ranks last in QBR out of the 35 qualified quarterbacks. And Cam had this to say on the I Am an Athlete podcast about playing next season.
Listen, bro, there's not 32 guys better than me. Put it like that. So you're asking me, like, bro, I'm not 32. Like, real talk. Like, I'm like, when you put it like that, bro, I'm not the 32 worst. Like, come on, man.
All right, so Cam says, I can be a starter, should be in the NFL. Well, after making 15 starts last season, he threw 8 touchdown passes, 3 of those in the season finale against the Jets. He is the third quarterback in NFL history to make at least 15 starts in a season and throw 8 or fewer touchdown passes. But keep in mind, he did run for 12 touchdowns. That's the most among quarterbacks, tied for 4th among all players. Now here's PTI with more on Cam and his NFL future.
All right, Wilbon, do you agree with Cam Newton that he can still be a starter in the NFL?
We can be a starter in a lot of places. A lot of places, and I'm familiar with one intimately, doesn't have a starting level quarterback. Now, if you're talking about playoffs, forget Super Bowl contention, just playoff contention. So maybe, Tony, but you know what? It doesn't matter what you say. You got to be able to do it. And Cam Newton has done it at a really high level. But then you look at him last year, and I just think he's been beat. He's taken too many shots. He's been beaten. I know what a great athlete Cam Newton was, a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. He was as great as any athlete who played the position. But I don't care how great you are. You take that many shots from players as big, as fast, as strong as he takes in the NFL every week. I don't know if he's a starter anymore. He's got to prove that he's a starter because he didn't prove it last year.
I think he's in the same position as Ben Roethlisberger. They don't want to go out in the manner that they left the field last year.
Sure.
I look at Cam Newton as a guy who took a lot of responsibility at New England. When he had a bad game, he said, I had a bad game. The problem is he had too many bad games.
Yeah.
There were just a lot of bad games. He can't throw the ball down the field anymore. He can run, and I think he can be a leader. But I think you have to unprejudice yourself about your memories of someone. When we look at Roethlisberger, when we look at Newton, we look at them in their glorious times, and we think, okay, they can do that again. I'm not sure they can do that again. Do I think he can start somewhere? Yeah, I think he can start somewhere. Do I think he'll get that opportunity? Not necessarily. And I feel the same way about Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
And so in the case of each one of those gentlemen, I hope we are dead wrong. I hope they can prove themselves to be not just starters, but guys who can lead teams to playoffs. I think they are both worthy of that. I hope it happens. That's it. We're done. Back to you.
Tony, Mike, thank you so much. Still ahead, more of tonight's QB hotspots, including Tua's year 2 proving ground and Carson Wentz's jersey swap rejection from his new Colts teammate. And the wild and odd stories surrounding the star of the New York Rangers, featuring accusations from 10 years ago that the team is calling an intimidation tactic. This is SportsCenter.